to the 2022 Back Pocket Video Game Awards for Excellence in Video Games, as voted on by us, the host of the Back Pocket 2022 Video Game Awards for Excellence in Video Games. I'm Nick.
I'm Gus.
I'm Peter.
And today, now, I don't know if this is the first video, because I don't know what order we're putting these out.
I doubt it. This would not be the first video.
You don't want to
this
start...
is like an end video.
Oh,
is like,
really?
Yeah,
Second last before like Game of the Year. Yeah, okay.
This is one of the worst ones.
But this is the first one we're recording today.
Yeah.
We're starting us on a low.
So I guess I want to say the thing that I wanted to say since this is the first time that we're recording.
Yeah.
But they'll just hear it. People may have even figured this out by then. I am dressed nearly identically to last year.
Oh, really?
With the exception of the t-shirt. I'm wearing the same hat, the same shorts, the same shoes, and the same socks as last year's Game of the Year.
Because I was going to be like, if you're wearing a different shirt, it's all torso this show.
It's all just
torso. It
torso.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're wearing something different.
But same socks.
Socks is weird.
Socks is weird. And and when I saw the socks, that's when I went, you know what? This is a fun way to start the second last video of the year. Of course it is.
Okay.
We're going to be here for 2 days. Okay, now we're going to start things off today in the record, but so far you may have seen a bunch of videos. On a downer, on a sad note, I would say video games as a whole this year, potentially a bit of a sad note.
Yeah. It can only go up from here. This is cancelled before release. It is the biggest disappointments.
Yeah.
Or our personal disappointments.
No, I think it's the biggest
Okay, right. Oh, I was being
yeah.
Entirely subjective and all about me, but no, this is...
And outside of just games as well. The biggest disappointment for humanity for 2022.
Yeah.
Totally.
Because COVID's a thing of the past now.
COVID's a thing of the past, and the Qatar World Cup is over. So it's like, it can only be this now. Biggest disappointment for video games. It's been a bit of a... I don't know if necessarily a rough year for video games is the right way that I want to phrase it, but it's been a year where there's been lots of good things and not a huge amount of phenomenal things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I think disappointment, a big part of it is... The expectation is a hype. And I don't know how many games this year really were marketing themselves as the be-all and end-all. This is going to be the greatest game ever. You know,
Your cyberpunks
and that kind of thing. So,
your 12 minutes.
While there are big disappointments, there are disappointments here. They are very meh. They're like, I didn't think much of this, and then when I played it, I didn't get much from it, which is kind of worse, because at least you can get angry at a hype machine that didn't deliver. This is just like, oh, I didn't think much of it. And that was kind of a lot of games. You're going to see that in a lot of the videos we talk about. It's like, I didn't play that much because nothing really got my attention.
Yeah, well, I would say the flip side to that, and we won't get too happy because this is meant to be an angry, sad
this is an angry episode.
Yeah. Angry, sad video.
Yeah.
But the flip side to that was that the couple of times that I felt joy this year, I remember... Like playing video games.
Okay,
sure.
Right.
Like I remember the moments where I was like, wow. Because
they stand out.
They stand out compared to everything else.
Yeah.
Even the big AAA titles, I just kind of just plodded through or put down pretty quickly because they just were so...
Those little...
It was the year of derivative titles, unimaginative titles.
But today is not a day of joy.
No.
Today is a day of sadness, anger, disappointment, resentment. I paid $70 for this. Or in our case, I redeemed 12 numbers in the PlayStation Store for this.
Or I Steam refunded in less than 2 hours for this.
And one of these, Gus, one of your choices, I'm very interested to see how it made it on this list. But Pete, we're going to start with you. Your first disappointment of 2022 video games related.
The most recent release as well.
Yeah.
The Callisto Protocol. I would say my hype level for this game was as high as anything this year.
Yeah.
It was a game that I've been interested in since the first tease of it. Big Dead Space fan. Loved that the team behind the original Dead Space were working on this. And I had, there's always fun when there's a bit of gaming rivalry, and this versus EA's Dead Space OG remake that's coming out next year made me want to love this.
Yeah.
And I've played the first third of this game or so. And it is kind of weak, kind of uninspired, and technically really broken. And I think what's taking a lot away from the game is how technically broken it is, because so much about a horror video game is tension. And all the tension is released when the game hitches.
Yeah.
You can't have a jump scare.
Not in a cathartic,
Well, it's and it's in the way
Stop
that
making a noise to describe disappointment. Yeah,
You can't have a jump scare if timing is broken.
Timing is broken, yeah. And a big part of what's been like a challenge over the last kind of 5 or 6 years of games, we've seen like shader caching. You know, you launch up COD and it spends 12 minutes loading shaders.
You walk into the most smooth Iraq you've ever been.
And so, but like, or you sit in the menu for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's that's arguably way more a way better solution. Than what's happening in this game, which is that anytime a new shader needs to be loaded in, the game hitches like fucking mad. And that happens when a new monster comes around the corner.
That's bad.
So it just like, and the game doesn't freeze, the frames freeze. So you get a still and animation is happening in the background, which you don't see, and suddenly you're getting dragged around a corner by some monster.
You hear it? You might even hear the sound
I
design.
think you do.
And then, again, that kills half the jump scare, which is, what this game and what this spiritual successor is, I would have thought 90% about, but it feels like it's just an action game from everything I've seen about it. I haven't played, but...
Yeah, well, the biggest new feature about it, the biggest differentiator from Dead Space is its melee-focused combat.
Brawler.
Yeah, and it I'm sure people have seen clips of people going ham with the combat system in this. I don't know if you've seen that going around this week, but, combat, the stasis thing, push, boom, 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 and it looks like... It's definitely a different way than the way I was playing the game, which was like, but looks more interesting than the way I was playing. For sure. Yeah. But it is kind of a system based around timing dodges and engaging in windows of opportunity, and it really pulls the tension out of the combat as well, because they become Sifu-esque combat scenarios of like, you just have your moveset and I need to learn your moveset. Or it's just it's a puzzle instead of a
button mash to panic because you're about to get your face chewed off or something,
Now I will say that the weapons, I'm a third of the way into the game and I only have the first gun, and I've upgraded that gun now to become effectively the cutter from Dead Space. So it's a horizontal like spread of bullets that can like really remove limbs quite easily. And I haven't really played that much with that, but the fact that I've had to slog through the first 3.5 hours of the game, or 3 hours of the game, and still don't have a really broad combat kind of tool set.
You don't have the stasis glove yet?
I've got the stasis glove. You get the stasis glove pretty early, but you upgrade all that stuff, which we're seeing right now. You upgrade all that stuff to become more and more useful, and that takes heaps of time.
Yeah, it's
actually like quite weak at the start. You pick up a heavy enemy, and the stasis jubies run out really quickly, so you can't use it anymore. It's kind of just like it falls short of achieving its tension and its atmosphere, and that's all it has.
And it's also, I think it's disappointing because horror films are in a really good spot right now. Horror games are still really, really hard to do, and there's just a bit of like Resident Evil is still what I think of when I think of like what horror gaming is these days, or it's like super small independent sort of things. This was really disappointing because I was super psyched for this. I was so excited for this. And then I saw the reviews and it just, I haven't played it because it just took the wind out of my sails. Everything about it was like, it's just super, super linear. The combat seems not particularly inspiring. It's kind of wrote by the numbers. We feel like we need a jump scare now, so we're putting a jump scare in. I felt... The only thing that isn't disappointing, and I didn't play it, but like the only thing that isn't disappointing to me is that this came out before Dead Space. I think it's important that this came out so that then we can play Dead Space and we can go, yes, this really was one of the best fucking horror games of all time.
I'll take one issue with the idea that this is linear as a negative point. I think this game should be linear. I think linear as used as a bad term, it's maybe like too obvious.
I think when I said end again, didn't play it, everything that I'd read, watched about it was the linearness was like, you're just in this hallway and then you fight this thing and then you're in this hallway and you fight this thing, and it's not like, it's just it's not creative in that, but
I would say to explore what could be an interesting setting as well. From my understanding, it's a prison planet, and it could be, the linearity leads to a lot of sameness.
The problem is the sameness, I think the exact same corridor layout would work if the environment changed in a way that was exciting and
cool.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's always for the first third, I know I'm about to go outside into like snowy tundra, well, whatever the snow of the surface of this moon is, but
and it'll be disappointing as well.
3.
Callisto,
What a shame.
Yeah, bummer.
Gus, bum us out again.
Sure. I mean, we brought it up just then, and I know this is going to be controversial, particularly with you, Nick, but one of the biggest disappointments for me this year was, in fact, Sifu. A game we played...
Seafood?
Seafood.
Sifu.
Sifu, a game we played for Game Club. And again, I'm putting this down to what I was hoping to get from the game, what I expected the game to be. So I think this is a very personal take on it in the sense that I was very excited for this game in its lead up because I saw a really fun, fast action game that was going to make me feel like I was in a hard-boiled style sort of action martial arts film. And what I didn't expect was I'm not going to say complexity, but the brutal difficulty. And I love difficult games, but I did not like how it did not gel for me in this setting, in this way that the game punishes you for not really getting a clear run the whole way through. I found that a really frustrating element of it, the way the aging really penalizes you and you can kind of stub your toe at the start and just continue to stumble on your way through versus... I really hate the idea of going, I want perfect runs. I want to be an absolute master. And this game I thought was going to make me feel that way. Don't get me wrong. I like the punishing difficulty, but I think with a game that focuses on a fighting style that just is so cinematic and so amazing to look at, especially when you get set pieces like this, I didn't want to have to be focusing on the combat system to the level it asked of me. I don't want to button mash my way through an arcade game, but I did want to feel super powerful the whole way through it. I would have liked it to be a game where if you kind of went on autopilot, you would have got through it simply enough. But if you wanted to do perfect runs that felt like you were doing the scene out of a John Woo film or something, that's when you perfected your skills and became a really good player at this, because I just found it super punishing. I found the systems that were in place quite complicated. I still, I didn't get my head around it from the beginning, and it really took multiple runs before once I started to understand how it was punishing me, I wasn't really encouraged to get better in the way that I feel inspired to try and play it in a better manner, which is unfortunate because I like everything it was going for. I like the developers, I like the art style, but I put it down way too early, and I saw how much you loved it and responded to the gameplay in particular, Nick, but I think I want this to look cooler than it felt to play. Like when I play Dark Souls, I know it's brutally punishing, but the combat doesn't look particularly good. It's just kind of like slicing and rolling. Whereas here, I want it to look like I'm perfectly choreographing a fight scene, and I wasn't focusing on that. I was just focusing on not getting hit, which wasn't really the vibe I wanted from it. So yeah, I found that was something that turned me off early on, and then I couldn't push through levels to get to the point that I wanted to finish a run, let alone do multiple runs of it. And that was not the vibe I wanted from this game. So that's on me, but I think a lot of people felt quite similar in terms of the difficulty and the feeling it left them with. Counterpoint?
No, I mean, this game is on my Game of the Year list. Sure. But I think it's the definition of what could be considered for this category, because it was also a game that we kind of didn't know what it was before it came out. And then it came out and it was like, oh, that's the kind of game.
And as I said, that's on me for building an expectation going, I think I know what this game's going to be.
It's not your responsibility. It's it's kind of, it is one of those games where you go, oh, I thought, we just didn't really know what it was. And then when it comes out, it's like, are you ready for a run-based game where, and I think that the central mechanic that either divided or made it was that aging thing just carrying over between levels and going, right, so if you screw up early in level 1, you need to basically run. I think ultimately I ended up beating this game at the base age or one age older than when you start the game. But that meant I needed to do every level flawlessly. For whatever reason, that ticked all the boxes in my head as I love this. But if you don't like that, this game is almost literally impossible to finish.
Yeah.
And I know like the combat didn't click for you as well.
It was more like by the third time I was doing the first level, I was like, I'm fucking over this.
Yeah.
Like it's not. I don't find repeating content fun. So like I like mastering systems, but like mastering a sandbox that is like, there's 3 guys in here and you take them out like this. It's like, I don't fucking care. Why are you forcing me? Because like ultimately the game will, there's one way to beat it, which is to like to beat it perfectly.
Yep.
If you watch anyone's YouTube play of a perfect play, it's identical.
Yeah.
There's only one way to do it. There's engage in the combat in the way that works for this scenario.
Yep.
So it's like the game is telling you to learn that, and I told the game I didn't want to.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with what you're saying, because for me, this was like, I thought this was a bit of a sandbox to go in there and direct my own action scenes in a way that was like a John Wick. Like, cool, I'm going to run into this really cool set piece and I'm going to fight the way that my...
Use a bunch of things in the environment.
Totally. And by the end of it, I'm going to feel, you know, that sort of, that video game escapism power feed that I got later on from something like Midnight Fight Express. That game played into that and is not an easy game, but definitely gives you the power fantasy and then gives you more toys to play with. And again, I would feel really good in Midnight Fight Express if I just managed to run a combat scenario and do it really well. But if I took hits and died, I was just like, no, it's cool. I'll go back. I want to go back and...
What you needed to stream this game, because I think a huge amount of my enjoyment, because I was just watching that firefight, huge amount of my enjoyment was having hundreds of people go, oh my God, he's doing it. Like, it's like, having a cheer squad really fucking
that
helps.
would have helped too.
Having a cheer squad is my version of Steph's playing games with friends, where it's like, that makes any game more fun.
You like playing games with an audience.
I just want to be loved.
But I love the boss... I love the design of the boss fights, and I like a hard boss fight from Dark Souls, but I don't like a boss fight. In Dark Souls, if I fail a boss, I don't want to go back and start my run again like some sort of hardcore Souls nude runner person that's like, oh, I can't one broing the game. It's
you
like,
kind of have to. My thing is more that
it's like, that is Dark Souls.
Yeah.
No, but hang on, you don't need to, if you fail at that boss, you don't need to then go back to the very start of the game.
Sure, but it's a 50-hour game as opposed to starting at 15
and also there
level.
are checkpoints here that you can restart at if you're happy with the age.
The same.
The feeling.
The vibe was the same.
To me, it was like, you know, getting through that fire guy boss fight, it was like I was just playing a rhythm game. I wasn't enjoying. I wasn't in a like ninja fighting game.
You weren't in a fight, you were in a dance.
Yeah, I was in a down, left attack. Down,
100%.
down, left.
You weren't going, I'm going to kick him now because he's not looking, and I'm going to grab a bottle and throw it, and suddenly like orchestrate this amazing
No, 100%.
scene.
It's like, if he does this attack, you need to do this, which I think is like, you can boil a lot of fighting games down to that, but this more so than most, where it was like, there's not a lot of opportunity for exploration in terms of
and the upgrade stuff that does make the game better and a little easier as you play on, and then you come back with those. I didn't even really explore that. Again, I felt was so far.
This is why you found
line.
the game so hard.
Well, but it was so far down the line. It just did
fair,
not
fair.
lead
Totally.
into anyone playing it early on. So
All right, Sifu. My first disappointing game, Gotham Knights. Oh boy, my God, loved the Arkham series. Loved the Arkham series so much. Love Batman Brawlers. Loved the idea of what this game was. I was ready to play a video-ass video game as well. I was kind of like, oh no, I'm okay to go find Riddler things. I'm happy to find Joker bits. I want to get me a Calendar Man part.
I want to see the fourth gang in
He's
the
He's a
street
Batman
go,
villain. Don't you worry about it.
I want to come up against the fourth symmetrical gang of hoons that go, it's not the bat, let's get him. And like, you know, that same thing.
Yeah,
where
exactly,
Every
yeah.
time you hear the same voice line and go, oh, yeah.
And this game, I both games on my list I classify as disappointing because I can't even muster the energy to go back to the game. And like, I did not finish either of them. I may finish the second one, but this one, the most disappointing thing out of the whole kit and caboodle is that it just feels awful to control these characters. And in a game where it is entirely about controlling these characters in these fights, to play something where it feels awful to move, to run, to fight, to drive, it's like, those are all the verbs I need to use to interact with your world. So none of this is enjoyable for me. And it was such a letdown for me because I know it's not the Arkham team and stuff, but it's like, it is trying to be that game. Like, that is what it is evoking. And it just, in every possible way, it was just like, oh, this is not the thing that I wanted. And also, I think that it may have been a situation where I looked at it and I'm like, oh, maybe I don't want this kind of game anymore, even though I thought I did. Like, I liked this game 7 years ago, and I don't like this kind of game now. I don't know.
You were playing a better version of it 7 years ago as well.
I was. So. Like, I would go back and play any of the Arkham games over this in a heartbeat. And yeah, it just had nothing that felt like it was doing anything that I hadn't seen before, and all the things it was trying to do that I had seen before, I had experienced in a different place in a better way. And I think that I remember back to when the Arkham Asylum game came out, and you just went, oh, this combat system is about to get stolen by fucking everybody. And it was. And this is like, you know what you should have done? Stolen that combat system, as opposed to tried to make your own.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at it, it just looks like there's a little bit too much of a delay at the start and end of animations. Yeah. And that's literally it. That's all it would take for this to feel way more fluid. It does. It's like there's a stall at the end of
and you're
everything.
Always doing an extra spin or jump or kick or punch. It's not... I think that part of the thing, that was because I know that Steph was really enjoying this. But again, she was cheating. She was playing with a friend.
Which is probably the way this is meant to be enjoyed. That's the one.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say none of us, I think, tried that. So.
No, but it was. It just doesn't. It's also like these games are supposed to be power fantasies, and it sucks to have a power fantasy ruined by realizing, oh, I'm kind of just controlling this little avatar bouncing around. Who, it's not cool when Robin isn't cool. Robin is particularly uncool when he kicks someone and they get knocked out, and then he kicks the air again. That's not good. That's not what I'm looking for.
And I wonder if it is a symptom of creating a game with 4 distinctly different fighting styles, but you need all the enemies to be attacked the same way. Because I noticed that playing it too, the combat did not feel responsive in the way that Batman puts people in a chokehold and punches them and they ragdoll. It was like everyone was doing sort of repeating poses and stances, and it did not look like this was an actual fluid connecting combat system. It just looked like, as you said, everything's a little delayed, everything is a little buggy, and I think that's a flaw of trying to make this a game that could be played with 4 different characters and, you know, all these different play styles. But none of them did anything distinctly good.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't even one thing in this game that you go, yeah, but the gliding was awesome.
But the bike
riding was
so
fun.
true.
Like you could say maybe that about the co-opness, but that's not like a word, first of all. That's also not a thing. It's like, oh, it had co-op. That's not something it did well. That's just something it had.
That's a great way of putting it. I think that, like, because I think about the Arkham games, which again, like, you know, it's not that, but it is that. And it's like, the combat was fantastic. The voice acting was phenomenal. The story was great. The bat zipping around was so satisfying. The stealth was amazing. And this, you're right. This has nothing that is the.
And he felt like a predator, which I mean, I guess like it's hard. I don't know if they wanted to let these characters feel as powerful as Batman.
Yep.
Maybe that was part of the design flaw of this whole idea is that they can't be as good as Batman.
Yeah.
But then why play it all?
Then why?
Why have
like
stealth sections that it has where you zip around on the walls and hide from people? It's like, well, you're trying to replicate it, but you're never going to have that same vibe. So make it a distinctly different game. I think what we're going to hopefully see in the Suicide Squad game I
think we'll definitely see characters that look and play and feel different.
Yes,
100%.
At the very least,
we have
when
to
you're a shark
because one of them is a shark.
Harley Quinn, it's going to feel different.
Whereas literally 3 of the people in this game are technically Robin, and then 1 is Batgirl. Peter, disappointing game number 2.
Disappointing game number 2 for me was Saints Row.
Oh yeah.
Saints Row.
God damn.
I don't really have even that much to say about how it's disappointing. Other than I just feel like it came back with a fanfare of bringing Saints Row back to our consoles and PCs, but with literally nothing new to say. It was like it was Saints Row again. It was like 2013.
Yeah.
It was so weird.
Yeah.
Like it was fine, but it was so nothing.
Next year, this segment can be called "It was
fine."
I want to say something very controversial, which is, remember how they announced this game and it was like cool, young, diverse, wokish kind of kids.
Yeah, and a really cool CGI trailer. Is really hip.
It feels like a lot of cool, young, wokish kind of kids where it's like, you're not really doing anything.
You're making a lot of noise.
You're making a lot of noise. You're not really affecting the change that you think you're affecting. And also,
who did the homework?
None of you? We did all this. We did all this in the 60s. Totally. Sorry. Continue to be disappointed.
I mean, that's kind of where I leave it. It's just like such a nothing game. And I could feel when I was playing it the kind of where I was meant to be feeling the kind of reminiscent joy of it. Just driving around streets and driving off the edge of
hooking cars to other cars, sandboxing the way we did back in the 2000s.
Bouncing around in a way that like pre GTA 5 even like feel of a sandbox. And it really just didn't have any hook to justify how dated it was. The story isn't interesting or like new interesting for a Saints Row. It's interesting in that it's batshit, but it's not interesting.
The setting looked remarkably uninspired too. Like they were going into this kind of like this sort of New Mexico style
realistic
area.
city,
and then it just was like, no, there's a lot of deserts and a blank space, and it was just like not to play with, just to fill padding.
And then it was just like big characters in a bland environment. So it was like, okay, I don't really.
Do you think that part of the problem is that there has been such an increase in games like battle royales, like, you know, starting with PUBG, that the dynamism of a world just means something different now. Like when we've played games with literally 99 other people running around causing chaos in it, it's harder for a single player game to feel as sort of like, I can go and just like, I can create my own chaotic world here, because it's like, well, I'm always I'm aware that I'm the only person here trying to do anything, and everyone else is just waiting for me to do something. Whereas we now play so many games where everyone is trying to do something at the same time, so you're always constantly coming in conflict with someone else's agenda.
Yeah, look,
is that too highbrow?
It's too.
I agree.
That's a different experience. I don't think that's impacted. That's not going to impact how playing PUBG is not going to impact how I feel about GTA 6.
I think you're more probably going along your Fortnites in terms of...
but this isn't anything like Fortnite.
No, but...
I don't know what the comparison is.
Well, my thing is like...
I go single player game.
But like I remember playing Saints Row and going into the world and going like, oh, I'm really going to like fuck shit up here, and like and it's going to really react to me and that sort of thing. Well, and now I go into Fortnite and it's like, I can do all that, and there's also other people trying to kill me, and they're also trying to fuck shit up as well. And now I'm constantly coming into like I need to have my wits about me kind of thing, as opposed to just like, I'm going to attach this thing to this thing.
Then I think your point being is when you come into a game like this, to go back to that thing where the world is only a limited reactiveness to what you are doing, and the chaos they are trying to say or trying to put on show here just doesn't...
is limited to just what you're doing.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think open worldness...
Maybe for you.
Yeah.
But I don't play Fortnite, and I would not go into a game like this.
GTA Online, like...
expecting that.
Yeah.
No, not even GTA Online. That's not what this is. It's not an online PvP experience. It's just not. So the thing that is disappointing about this is the lack of reactiveness, because the world doesn't react to you. The AI doesn't react to you in an interesting way. Where GTA 5, that's interesting to just go and stand in front of NPCs
and just watch the
world.
Yeah,
this is such a dull world.
Yeah,
and that's what it needed to deliver.
Yeah,
or it needed to totally pivot and be an open world PvP.
I don't think we're
sandbox.
saying that what this is by comparison to those, but in a world where those games exist, this just feels...
You're never going to convince him.
These flaws feel even
I regret saying anything.
I feel like there should have been more puzzles. In this open world puzzle game.
Sure.
You know, puzzle games.
It also was not funny.
No, it wasn't. It didn't. It didn't.
Which is
really
a huge flaw for a game that wants to be funny.
I would say the character voice that I picked was charming, but not funny.
Yes.
Yeah. So disappointing.
Yeah. God, really came and went this one. Gus.
Yep.
Surprise us with your most played game of 2022 also being your most disappointing.
I played a lot of it, sure. But I think a game that I've come away feeling disappointed at the end of my experience with it is Roller Champions, a game that we all talked about in the lead up because... look, I don't dislike the game.
You have a
I'm
literal
disappointed
team.
with it. Yeah, I know.
You
I know.
own a team.
I own
You
a
wouldn't let
team.
me get rid of the stinky jersey that you...
I am hanging on to every element of this game that I do like, but that is not to say that I haven't found the experience of it and how it's been sort of accepted into the gaming lexicon disappointing, because I feel like this game has so much potential, and in the short time that we ended up sort of playing it and it did finally launch, it suddenly gets this announcement that it is coming out of the 3-year beta and we get to play it. I expected this to be a game that I could not put down and that I was playing with a lot of friends, and I have 3 to 4 different groups or cliques of gaming friends, and I couldn't really convince any of them to stick with it. I could convince them to play it and enjoy it for a night, but I couldn't seem to get people to get the same hooks in that we had when we were playing the beta, and we thought, I mean, you're literally one of them, who I was like, we should be playing this more.
You're one of those friends.
You're one of those friends. And I think the game needed to do more out of the launch to develop on the concept outside of just stick with what works, which is this basic principle of the core gameplay, the core arena. I had hopes that they were going to really lean hard into expanding that and turning it into a bigger game. But unfortunately, what it did turn into was a game that people got tired of very quickly. Mm-hmm. A game that people who got good at it could exploit. Exploit's the wrong word, but the people who got good at it, not in the same way that playing a shooter and getting, shot by people.
but in the same way that Roller Champs, suddenly people were flying cars 2 weeks into it.
Rocket League.
Sorry,
Yeah, that's another problem with the game.
Yeah, totally.
The way that people got good at Rocket League was it like in a way that looked aspirational. That you went, I'm going to be like that. And I do play non-stop Rocket League, and I can kind of do some aerials. That's about it. The things that people could do in this game eventually, and very quickly in, I think, the sort of 2 to 3 weeks, was this level of game-breaking play style that just stopped being fun to play. And unfortunately, I think for the developers, they didn't really have a way to bring that in. There was issues with matchmaking that turned a lot of people off, which is, not the developers' fault directly, but it did really turn people off waiting in queues and then getting mismatched games, that kind of thing as well. So I know they are doing seasonal content and they are changing, the roller pass and adding skins and occasionally some locked out, some timed arena fun modes. But I think there were some crucial flaws at the beginning of this game that stopped it being as fun as it could have been. There were some basics like sort of mucking around an arena while you waited 20 minutes for a game. There was new arenas that...
I think the first problem is waiting 20 minutes for a game.
Yeah. Well, look, that was just part and parcel. But yeah, so I still adore this game, but I'm disappointed in it.
I don't know how Rocket League skirted this problem, but this came up with like Knockout City. I think it's hard to make a live service sports game that stays fresh because when it's and this is like a sport, sports are so heavily rules based that as soon as you break the rules of the sport, it stops being fun. Like it's like if there were holes opened up here and lava started bursting out and stuff, you go, well, this is not. There's an element of
competitive integrity. Of
exactly.
The game.
So it's kind of like I don't know what else you do to this game other than the base game. It's in the same way that FIFA is like, well, sometimes we add 6v6 football, and it's like that's kind of it because if we added anything to football, we fucked football. Yeah. So you need to go to like Warhammer, the Blood Bowl style.
Sure.
Yeah. And so it's hard because I remember I love this game. I think it's really fun. And the same as you, where it's like the disappointment is what else could happen. But I remember even when they announced it, I was like,
how are they going to expand?
It's just going to be this. It's going to be this with different skins.
Yeah.
And that has to be enough. And I always thought that this feels too small.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you make it bigger.
Well, I also think, like, as I mentioned, they have experimented with some different arenas and some timed game modes, but I don't think they have the confidence to, and maybe it's a worry of splitting the player base, of going, there is also this part of the game, which are these fun, customizable, make your own arenas, mess with the game, modifiers, the way Rocket League kind of does still do. Like, there are all those other versions of Rocket League out there. I just play versus on a soccer pitch, but there is ice hockey, there is is Loop the Loop, there is basketball. There are all these things there for people to experiment and just mix up the play style. And I think they probably should have gone a bit harder on that. They should have said there's also a fun, non-competitive, muck-around version of this game you can play as well. But I think they just stuck strictly with this, and I think just changing skins and arenas, while it looks pretty and there's some great design in it all, I don't think it's enough to keep people there and keep new players coming in, unfortunately. So,
and actually, thinking about Rocket League, the reason it works is it's just soccer. It's soccer with no offsides, and the ball can't go out. So you go, whereas this is like there's new rules
sport.
and stuff. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
My final, well, not my final disappointment, but the second biggest disappointment is, and I hate to say this, I was so excited for this game, but that's the whole point. That's how you can't be disappointed.
You can't be
if
disappointed
you
if you
weren't
have no
excited about it. I don't even want to say it out loud.
That's what we learned from Becca, if nothing else. No expectations, no disappointments.
Becca, the TV show, the Ted Danson TV show. Becca,
that was his motto. That was the rule to live by.
Were you like
no
8
expectations,
when
no
that was
disappointments?
on?
And then the little rat guy was like, I'm not going to fix your sink.
That's it.
That was the show.
It's classic Becca. A Plague Tale Requiem.
Yeah.
The rat guy.
The rat guy. Plague Tale Requiem. Yeah, god damn it. Still haven't finished this one. I want to go back. It should work. It's the same game. So that's disappointing.
Yeah.
You start and you are doing the same sort of everything is great, and then something goes wrong rat related.
Rat wise.
The boy that you had, like your brother, who by the end of the game was controlling waves of rats, is just fridged at the beginning of this game. And it's like, no, you don't interact with the rats. You just need to run from the rats and now use all the same systems, which is the light and the whatever.
The trauma that you went through is suddenly kind of like gone, and now it needs to be recreated.
You just need to re-traumatize. Yeah. Like, I was talking to a couple of people about this, and I was like, what is it about this that makes it feel frustrating? And there's also just this feeling that, like, you're just in the same, you're also in the same conflict scenario. I almost want it to be like you're being chased by someone and you need to flee across France, and what you have is the power of rats to be able to aid you and help you fight and that sort of thing. And instead, it's just falling back on the same thing. You are the victim. Like, I shouldn't be the victim. I should be powerful, but there's someone more powerful. But I'm not. I'm just the victim again. And so it was just so disappointing that was the case. I said it when we spoke about it. What I wanted this to be was Uncharted to Uncharted 2, Assassin's Creed to Assassin's Creed 2, Mass Effect to Mass Effect 2. I just wanted it to be, we made something that people saw the potential in, and then we just did everything to maximize all the potential of this. And it just wasn't that.
And what we ended up saying was that we speculated that this is kind of turning the first game into a proof of concept and going, well, now that we're on Game Pass and now that we have maybe a bit more time and budget, it's a nervousness to step outside of what worked in the first game and maybe try and broaden that audience. But I think what happened is an unexpectedness of how many people played and adored that first game, and then realizing, I mean, that's speculating.
No, totally. Well, the interesting thing is that I think that most of the failings are just from a narrative isn't necessarily a word, but just like a framing perspective. It's like, it's not that it's not fun to play anymore. It's still a puzzle game. It's not an action game. There's like you were saying about Sifu, there is a right way to get through this thing, and you will just die until you figure out that. But that's okay to me because you're trying to tell, like, it's much more about the story that you're trying to tell. But you didn't create an interesting story. You just made the same story again. So and it just felt like the same size team made it again. Yeah. So therefore it still ran into the same technical limitations, still ran into the same presentation limitations, like all that sort of stuff. So yeah, super disappointing because I really loved that first one, and I loved it. I loved it on its own merits, and I loved it in a way where I was like, I can see what a great version of this could be. And
you and I still exist in that Mandela effect vibe of thinking, didn't this game have like an older brother and she was older?
Oh, dude.
And, like that is you have young children who have the potential to have a time jump and go, this world has evolved, these characters have evolved, they are now in a new setting, a new space.
Berenstein, Burstein, Bears bullshit.
You don't have some actors that you can't age up quicker or revert. It's like they're digital characters. You could flip this whole thing and be like, he's an older...
We have to find that trailer and go... I am convinced that there is a trailer where that boy is like 15 years old and she's in her mid-20s.
Yep.
I am convinced that trailer exists.
I'm not going to look it up because I don't want to be proven wrong.
Yep, I like that too. Very disappointing. So, Callisto Protocol, Sifu, Gotham Knights, Saints Row Roller Champs, A Plague Tale Requiem. The 6 most disappointing games of 2022.
And none that really, I mean, maybe outside of Callisto Protocol, none that said, like, this is going to be epic. These games were, I think, things that we
Saints
thought...
Row thought it was going to be.
Saints Row as well, yeah.
But everything else was kind of like, oh, I've got a little bit of hope for this. And then that hope has died. That flame has burnt out.
Yeah. And we've burnt out on this episode. We'll be back tomorrow with hopefully something good to talk about.
Unless this was the last one.
Oh, yeah, that would be a bummer.
Ooh.
We should do Game of the Year on the 31st and then on the 1st, most disappointing game.
And you're going to wear that tomorrow as well?
I shouldn't I? I'll definitely wear the same sock.